All right, to this now. The Save South Africa Civic Movement has called on the Gauteng Education MEC, Matume Chelwane, to consider the racism allegations against the Pretoria High School for Girls staff, including the principal. It's reported that there were complaints about black learners through a WhatsApp group comprising of white learners. 12 learners have so far been suspended. Education activist Hendrick Makaneta joins us now via video link to weigh in on this particular story. So thank you so much for your time. I mean, it is, post-apartheid South Africa, and we continue to have these incidents. I mean, we've seen a number of racist incidents, particularly in our schools. It's not the first time for this particular school to, be accused of such incidents and, has been in the media for its reported harmful practices, especially towards black children. Just your reaction to this latest accusation?
Definitely, the challenge that we face today is that, elders, in the absence of parents at school, teachers automatically become parents. And therefore, teachers have got a duty to ensure that they inculcate the spirit of mutual respect, especially amongst learners who come from diversified groups, black and white learners at school level. And it appears that Pretoria High School for Girls, the management there has not been able to inculcate the spirit of Ubuntu, the spirit of mutual respect. Because as you have correctly said, it is not the first time that we experience issues of racism in that particular school.
And I mean, when you look at these children, they are young. I mean, the children in schools today are essentially born frees, if I can call them that. So how best then should, schools confront, firstly, that racism exists in the broader context of, South African society, and secondly, implement these anti-racist platforms so that we can see some form of movement in promoting social cohesion that government always, speaks of, instead of what we're seeing now, turning a blind eye to actual racist incidents that we're seeing in schools?
I think that what is required is for schools to engage in dialogues. And I'm saying dialogues because it must not just happen once. It must be regular occurrence. Learners, both black and white, must be brought on board. Racism must be clearly defined for these learners because they are very young. Some of them might not really have a grasp of, the actions that they take against their fellow learners. We need to bring them on board because discipline alone will not be able to root out racism in our schooling community. These learners need to be engaged thoroughly so that we can also hear from their side. They must be able to participate, given a chance to air their views on what they think racism is. It must be discussed and, even the consequences, because they just don't realize, I'm talking about the perpetrators here, they don't realize that, their actions can go a long way to even lead to depression amongst victims, also suicidal thought.
Yeah, you talk about discipline and, of course, consequences. When we look at, the fact that there are now calls for the MEC for Education to, in fact, hold the principal and the staff of that school accountable, it does become important. I mean, given the fact that, this is not the first racial incident at this particular school, and also the harmfulness that racist behavior does impose on the children by its very nature, having these racial slurs, said in your face are violent, so how then do we hold the school accountable?
The school should be held accountable first and foremost because, of course, as I said, this is a recurring incident if you are talking about Pretoria High School for Girls. And it appears that there is no will, from the management to get to the bottom of these issues because at some point, we are told they were reported, but the learners were ignored. I'm talking about the victims.
Yeah.
Each and every school must have processes and mechanisms in place to address any concern that may arise from any learner, whether it's a black learner or a white learner. And in this case, it appears that the management in that particular school only dragged their feet. It was only towards the end that we now saw action being taken. But I'm saying that they must account because they have a duty to make sure that they defend and protect all learners irrespective of their background.
Mr. Makaneta, thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate your insights. Of course, that is education activist Hendrick Makaneta, who's joining us there around these incidences of alleged racism at the Pretoria High School for Girls, where some girls, including 12 learners, have so far been suspended for this particular incident.